What's up? This is Brad with Be Real and Bob Mills. Hey, coming at you today from a little bit different place. You know, I was in a very, even though I was in a transitional phase when I was starting these podcasts, I was still coming from a place of comfort. I was coming from a place of, even though the podcasts were new, I was kind of sharing and helping in any way that I could, but I was sharing and helping in areas that I was fairly good at, or that were things that, I had done for a long period of time, which makes a big difference. So, not that much has changed, but at the same time, I've been in this new position with Bob Mills now for 6 weeks or something like that. And so the first 3 weeks were nothing but, basic training. And then the last 3 weeks have been learning the system in the store level. And let me tell you, here's one thing that has come out of it that I realized. That there were things that I was doing in my previous job that I really felt like I needed to brush up on some of the basic training of sales or interacting with customers, or learning the software that we keyed tickets on. I know you guys are thinking, well, that's pretty elementary. But I had all these other skills, which were managing skills, motivational skills, leadership skills. They were just things that I've done for 40 years, right? But I really, as time evolved, I really needed some of the basic training things. And I wouldn't slow down or carve enough time out of my schedule to go back and learn the basic training things. So during this evolution and transition, it has somewhat forced me into doing these things that I wanted to do in the first place. And here's why it's always so important to stay tuned in and stay polished on the basic things, like talking to customers, using the software. You're a far better manager if you can do those things that you're asking your people to do. It's any type of sales, it comes from, there's two different levels of understanding. If I'm sitting in a room and I'm learning something new, I learn it in a way that's like, okay, I learn it well enough that I understand it. There's another level of understanding where you know it well enough that you can teach it. That's a whole different level of understanding. And so now the things that I've been doing has put me in a position that now I understand it to the level I can help somebody else out in the basic. I'm talking about in the basic of needs, which then add that to everything else I was doing, is extremely helpful. But along with that comes fear. And the fear comes from the unknown. And the fear comes from literally years or decades of being fearful of doing certain things. Over a long period of time, this huge wall gets built up, right? And you find ways to skirt around that wall and not have to face whatever it is that you're fearful of. And in my opinion, life, karma, the world, God has a tendency of moving that obstacle back. And sooner or later, you're going to need to overcome that to fulfill the things that you were sent to this earth to fulfill. And so, but the fear's a bitch, man. Fear ain't no joke, and it can lock you up. Even though fear is not even an actual thing. So when I say that, it's like, hey man, go out in the hallway and grab me a cup full of joy. No, there's no such thing. So go pick up that thing over there that is fear and bring it to me. You can't do that. These are all things that are manifested in your head, right? So, but fear will lock you up, and I'm not minimizing it. I'm not, now that I've faced it more. I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm coming from. Now that I've faced it more, I want to talk about it more, because first, what you need to do is really, really, really evaluate what it is about that situation that you're ultimately fearful of, because life has a tendency of making this thing bigger than it really is. You know, the obstacle's really bigger than what it is. Well, let's figure out of that obstacle, what of those obstacles can you do? And so you're dissecting it into, there's probably only one or two things you really need to identify and then overcome, right? So that's a big thing. And I really feel like this is important, because with fear, I don't care who you are, with fear comes anxiety. With fear comes depression. With fear comes an unfulfillment of life. And so that's why, now that I've experienced it more and I've allowed it to mind screw myself sometimes, like me and Cash were just talking about, you have a tendency of forgetting who you are. And that's where fear seeps in sometimes. And I don't know if you ever heard any of the podcasts, but you will remember failure 4 times longer than you will success. So what ends up happening is when you get put into these difficult situations, you have a tendency of forgetting, you already did this crap. You did this. It might have been 20 years ago, but if you could do it 20 years ago or 10 years ago, you can do it now. It's not different, but it's that mindset of reminding yourself of who you are, reminding yourself the abilities that you have, focusing on your strengths, not focusing on your weaknesses. So identifying what they are. Now, another thing that is extremely important when it comes to fear, I'm going to go to 3 things. I'm going to talk about fear. I'm going to talk about perseverance. I'm going to overcoming objections. And then I'm going to talk about celebration. So this fear is not going to be a 20-minute deal here. But it is important, because you can't, if you don't overcome the fear part, you're not going to persevere. You're not going to have anything to celebrate. So I just want to cover that first. So the thing too is don't go it alone. There's 2 things to remember. One, like I've said a gazillion times, you were sent to this earth with everything you need to achieve what you were sent here to achieve. Well, part of your inhabitants on this earth are the assets that are around you, whether they are friends, whether they are family, whether it is a vehicle, whatever it is. You know, that's kind of how I started this whole podcast thing. I started inventorying what was around me, and what the hell can I do, man? I mean, I just worked for a company for a long period of time. They canned me. What do I have around me? And hell, there was a lot of fear. But I had to look at it and go, what do I have around me? Who do I have around me? And where can I take the first step? You got to take the first step. So assess what's around you. Find what your assets are. Those are both physical, mental, spiritual. People are a huge asset. Because here's the deal, you can't sit there and go, well, man, I'm going to do that when this happens, or I'm going to do that when this happens. No, it might never happen. And so you're locked in this state of perpetual nothing, man. So, and like I'm probably going to say it a couple of times here, I'm coming from a different place now. You probably can tell in the intensity of my voice. I'm coming from a different place now where I'm fearful on a daily basis. And so I have to identify that, overcome that, go do that, and keep rolling. But I'll tell you this, the gratification and rewards that come from the fruit that comes from that, overcoming that instantly, immediately, and I always make this before when I was talking about it from a place of comfortable. It's like if you've ever watched like a race in the Olympics, a hurdler, Well, they go over that first hurdle and then they go over that next hurdle. Next thing, they're running so fast, it's like there's not even hurdles on the track. That's what I'm talking about here. That if you don't go over the first hurdle, you'll never go over any hurdles. But as you move forward and you get comfortable going over hurdles and you don't let fear lock you up, then what will end up happening is that you get going faster over the hurdles and you don't even see the hurdles, because there's going to be hurdles the rest of your life. There's going to be things you're fearful of the rest of your life. So that's why I'm coming to you from that. Understand the nature of fear. Another thing, which I've said this before, the human mind can only think of one thing at a time, and fear's a real deal. But at the same time, so's gratitude, and so's grace. And so if you force yourself into remembering and being grateful for those things that are in your life, then what happens, those tend to manifest, and that helps you to overcome that fear. That's extremely important. You're not alone. It's not that you don't have crap going on in your life. I mean, positive crap going on in life. It's not like you don't have some kind of assets. Now, that's what the adversary is going to try to convince you of, and that just keeps you. If they can keep you locked in a state of fear, it's one. So, keeping those things in mind is the quickest way to overcome, like an anxiety, depression, fear. Is look around you and be thankful. Look around you and find the assets that you have. Take those assets, but you know what, man, none of that shit's going to matter. It's not going to matter if you have succeeded in the past. It's not going to matter if you have a few assets around you. It's not going to matter if you have great people around you, because they can't help you take that first step. You got to take the first step, because then once you do that, then comes perseverance. Perseverance and grit is the deal, man. Over a long period of time, and I'm not talking about like little bursts of perseverance. I'm talking about days and days and days and days of perseverance. If you go through days and days and days of perseverance, after a period of time, you ain't fearful of nothing. Why are you not fearful of nothing? Because I overcame it yesterday. I overcame it the day before. But grace, and when I say grace to you, grace to the people around you, are huge, huge things. I'm changing gears, but I'm not changing gears. I want to talk about, like when you're faced with the same thing with obstacles. When you're faced with objections, or you're in a situation, either a business situation or a life situation or whatever it is. When you're in a situation where you're facing objections, it's extremely important. Just like, okay, I made it sound super simple about inventory your assets, get the assets around you, take the first step. I made that sound simple, but sometimes you assess the assets around you and you figure out what's going on. You take the first step and you get smacked right in the head. Okay? But then comes the perseverance part where you do it again. Now you do it 10 times, you're doing something wrong. And I have a tendency to do that. Like if I get into a situation and I go through these steps that I've been saying and it doesn't go the way that it should, what I have a tendency of doing, well, hell, that didn't work, so I'm just going to go faster. I'm like, no, that's not the answer. 2, which Cash just said, we were having problems setting up some of this equipment. She said, calm is what is needed right now. And so really what I do, if I inventory the assets, I figure out the things that I've got going on in my life, positive. If I don't do something or it doesn't turn out correctly the first time, which it might not, then the next thing to do would be to do it slower and be more intentional and be more focused. The worst thing you can do is speed up. Now, if you do it enough times, you're doing something wrong. I run into people all the time. Well, I just keep doing this, and this, and it doesn't work. Then do something different. I'm going to talk about that in my next podcast about bearing fruit. If it ain't going right and it's not going the way you want to, why would you keep doing it? Don't do it. You know what? It's like, well, I keep putting myself in these situations, and and the people are not responding the way I like them to respond to. Let me tell you something, guys. If you know, being put into a situation, and the other person is not responding correctly, and I say this in a loving way, more than likely it's about the delivery. The difference between you feeling like I'm sitting here trying to manipulate you or I'm trying to help you is actually the intent of my heart. So if you're in a situation, which it's extremely important, we've gone over this before about how important relationships are, that if you go into a situation in the first 5, 10, 20 seconds, you're not getting a favorable response, guess what? You approach that situation from a wrong place. So what you need to do is come at it from a different angle. Now, when you do that and you deliver that, keep in mind that all you want to do is be kind. All you want to do is be friendly. All you want to do is be gracious. How they respond has nothing to do on you. I'm telling you, that'll be a huge deal to help you. Because then after you've delivered the original deal, maybe they don't respond correctly again. You know what the next thing to do is? Do another kind thing and another kind thing, because I'm telling you, kindness is our number one asset, and it's free. So overcoming objections, overcoming negative situations. From a sales arena, I'm reminded of this, that especially now, you know, well, it's been that way for a while, but you know, I've learned and found that a lot of times a transaction doesn't happen because anytime there's doubt or fear out in the world, or the unknown out in the world, let's say leading up to the election, no matter what side of the election you're on, everything kind of froze because nobody knew what the outcome was going to be. As soon as the outcome happened, then we had a bump in everything. Well, that's because people had a general idea where we were headed, right? So the same thing with us is that we want to put it in a situation where they know the outcome of it. The first thing you sell is yourself. The next thing you sell is whoever you're representing. And the third thing that you sell is the product. But first you got to sell yourself, okay? But there again, a lot of people fail. I can tell you story after story of things from in history where people were within literally 5 to 10 feet when they were mining, and they quit, turn around and sell the mine to somebody else, and they find the largest silver deposit ever found on earth. You know what I mean? Shit like that. And the person was 5 feet from it. So that overcoming objections and perseverance and persistence. Because let me tell you, here's another thing. Everybody went to bed last night wishing and hoping and dreaming something good's going to happen today. And there's a lot of people, no matter what you're doing in the world, there's a lot of people that are in your same field. So what it comes down to is are you willing to try harder and more than the other people are? If you're not, then that blessing is going to go to somebody else. If you're not, that sale's going to go to somebody else. So you have to make sure you're not stopping before the blessing. You're not stopping before the opportunity actually becomes available to you. Let me tell you another thing that now that I'm in this space a little bit more, I have got to celebrate. I've got to celebrate. Yeah, no, I'm not where I want to be. No, I'm not. But at the same time, I'm further along than where I thought I would be 6 weeks ago. Cash reminded me of that earlier. So, just like I said, you have a tendency of repeating over and over and over where you're not, but but what you're not doing is reminding yourself of where you've gotten to. I had a buddy one time tell me that, because let me tell you, it's going to be shocking to y'all. But I hate standing in line. I don't care what it is. If it's like, if you're going through customs at the airport, if you're in a long line at the grocery store, if you're at a government office, whatever the heck it is, I hate standing in line. This buddy gave me something that was extremely helpful. And let me tell you what it was. He said, you know what, Brad, when you're in this line for a certain period of time and you're getting anxious, turn around and look at the last person in line. Because you know what? Your ass ain't back there. So there's something about that. But it's the same thing with where I'm at now. I don't think I don't think I've ever been in a situation in life's like, whoa, I made it. I'm always one of these people who likes to move further. But like right now in my current situation, no, I'm not where I'd like to be. But there again, considering where I was 6 weeks ago or considering I was 2 months ago and I didn't even have a job, I'm a lot further down the road. And you got to give yourself the grace, man. Hell, I jokingly tell people that that when people go, "Well, you're pretty confident," or you're pretty this, you're pretty, yeah, man, I love myself so much. Sometimes I text myself, you know what? I'm joking about that, but that's probably wouldn't be bad for us to do to remind us of the something that we did well or something that we achieved that day. Here's the other part that'll help you to keep going. The mind either moves forward or grows. You know, that growth mindset that we talked about a lot. When you're in a growth mindset, you can't see fear. When you're in a perpetuating, moving forward place, you don't have time to look in the, that famous quote, that's why the windshield's way bigger than the rearview mirror, is when you have that growth mindset and you're moving forward with a growth mindset, you don't have time to be fearful. So that's, in my opinion, for me, now that I'm coming from this different place where I'm in a little bit of doubt, I'm in a little bit of the unknown. I have a tendency of that. So then in my downtime, I allow fear to creep in. What I really need to do is to be thinking, what am I going to do next? What have I done well? What have I succeeded at? What are my blessings? Because see, while I'm thinking of all those things, where am I going? Where am I headed? What have I succeeded with? What's in my life that's a blessing? Who loves me at these deals? See what I'm saying? That's a growth mindset that starts just steamrolling the crap out of fear, steamrolling the crap out of whatever situation that you're in. Hey, guys, remember, man, I'm not just here for these podcasts. There's a link below. Subscribe. There's way everybody knows how to get a hold of me if you ever need to get a hold of me. I said that in my very first podcast that, my place of homelessness. I'm going to tell you something else. Since my wife posted it online, I want us one thing to celebrate. On Friday the 21st, I was 10 years sober. Get you some of that right there. But even with this season that I'm in right now, is it all fun? No, it ain't all fun. But I'm just one of these people that I'm not in this season to get stronger. I've always been a big guy. I've always been a pretty strong person. I'm going through this season now because I relate more to people that are in a fearful state. I relate more to people who are in an anxious state because they're in a new situation and they're learning stuff that they've never known before. If you're in that place, if you want to just talk to somebody, if you just need some encouragement, but don't let fear stop you. Perseverance and grit is what it's about. Overcome the objectives. Don't forget who you are. Let me tell you, I'll finish with this. I always say that I tell people, you know what my biggest prayer for my friends is that they just see themselves like I see them and see themselves like God sees them. Well, you know what? It's time for me to take some of my own medicine. You guys go have a great day. Be real. Thanks for tuning in.